Yo, what's up guys, it's Steven here. I'm going to be showing you how I made $478,000 in the last 90 days using AI to build an Airbnb business without risking a single dollar of my own cash. Before I go into how I did everything or why I'm even making this video, I want to show you a little bit of my numbers. So right here is my Guesty dashboard. This is what manages all of my revenue and shows all of my numbers. And as you can see in the last month, just for March, we did a little bit over or almost $170,000. As you can see right there. Now I want to show you what I did in the last 90 days from January to March of 2025. So January 1st all the way to March 31st of 2025, as you can see up here at the top. Now we did $478,100.33 for the last 90 days just in 2025. Now I can go through that again so you can see that like it's not AI or whatever. So yeah, January 1st to March 31st, 2025, $478,100.33. And like I said, this Guesty dashboard is what manages all of my listings, manages my communications, what I link all my listings to so I can manage my revenue and all of my calendars. What I want to show you now is what we did for 2024, January 1st to December 31st of 2024. So I'll go up here to the calendar, go all the way back to January of 2024, January 1st, 2024 to December 31st of 2024 as well. As you can see up here at the top, hit apply. And we did $1.877 million just in 2024, just short of $2 million last year. And this year, I think we'll definitely crack that $2 million mark on a perfect run rate to hit that. So as you can see, January 1st to December 31st, 2024, $1,877,806.92. Now, the reason that I'm even making this video at all is because I'm seeing a lot of, just to put it bluntly, BS out there of gurus on YouTube, Reddit, TikToks, and Instagram. And everyone is kind of regurgitating and just saying the same recycled information. And nobody's really innovating or doing anything differently, especially when it comes to getting into things like real estate, particularly Airbnb. And yet I have managed to make millions of dollars with my Airbnbs without ever having to like buy any properties or risk owning any real estate or have to use any of the cash out of my own pocket to grow and scale this business. And I do it all 100% remotely. So I don't have to step foot in any of these properties if I don't want to. And what's cool is even if you have zero experience in real estate and no money to invest, this strategy can and will work for you. When it comes to my belief and strategy of getting into real estate, particularly Airbnb, I have a ton of people that think this strategy is stupid or wouldn't work because they just don't understand how it works. And in this video, I want to go through exactly how it works and just show you the inside and out of my business so you could possibly start something like this. Show you not only why it works, but exactly how it works pretty well for me, I would say. And then just show you some results, because if you want uncommon results, you have to be willing to do uncommon things and find the gap that has more upside and less risk than every other option there. So let me get into those steps right now. Now, if you don't understand what rental arbitrage is, it's essentially where you rent a property from a landlord with that landlord's permission, furnish the home, and then list it on platforms like Airbnb, making up to 4 times the rent and profit. The two situations that people usually have with that, or the questions that they usually have, is 1, why would a landlord let you Airbnb their property? And 2, isn't Airbnb saturated? The answer to the first one, why would a landlord let you Airbnb their property? First of all, you're running this as a business, so you're not going anywhere. Secondly, you're gonna be taking a ton of care of their property. It's gonna be getting cleaned 2 to 4 times a week, more than any tenant ever could. And my house doesn't even get cleaned that much. Thirdly, you are gonna be covering insurance through Airbnb more than any tenant ever could. Fourth, you will always be paying rent and there won't ever be drama because you'll be budgeting it as a monthly expense because you're running it again as a business. And lastly, you bring future deals. So like a regular tenant, they stay in a property, they leave after a year and the property's trashed and the landlord has to spend months repairing the property. And not only do landlords not make very much profit every single month, like a couple $100, but now they have to spend that time paying the mortgage while no one else is staying in it, paying the mortgage for them. And they had to fix those repairs. I come in and I offer to stay or take their property off their hands, and I'll sign a 3 or 4 year lease so they don't have to worry about that property for that amount of time. And typically I re-sign so they don't even have to worry about it for even longer than that. And I take care of the properties and keep them in pristine condition. So I'm much, much better than a regular tenant. And typically I'll throw a couple extra $100 to them every single month. So it's really just a win-win for them. And to put it bluntly, you're not just a tenant, you're an upgrade because you give landlords peace of mind, protect their asset, and bring more business their way. That's why they say yes today and they say yes again tomorrow. And that's how you scale. And that's the rental arbitrage advantage. Now, secondly, people always say, like, isn't Airbnb saturated? No. So when you go over to Airbnb, you'll see these top few properties that are just like crushing it. They're sitting in the mid 200s a night. They're doing really well. But then you go over to like the second page and you'll start seeing properties that are doing like $61 a night, like low hundreds, 99, 148. And that is because the top 20% of any market is going to eat up the bottom 80% of the rest of the market. You may perceive that any business is saturated because I've seen car salesmen that don't make a lot of money, but I also know car salesmen that make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Same thing for any business. I know people in that business that don't make a lot of money, and then I know people that make a ton of money. And that's because the bottom 80% of any market is not going to do so hot, but the top 20% is going to eat up the bottom 80%. So along with their top 20%, they also get the bottom 80% of that market. As long as you can perform in the top 20%, there's not really anything that you have to worry about. The only thing that's saturated is average properties and amateurs. And as you can tell, there's a lot of properties that are really average and are amateurs. The more pages you go over, the farther you get from the best performing properties, and you'll see lower and lower rates and lower review scores. People don't like those properties and people are running them incorrectly as amateurs, and the properties just don't stand out amongst the competition. Pretty crazy thing that I saw is that this property right here, which is #1 ranking spot, this is a property that we set up as well. And I'll go into this property a little bit later. This is the property that me and my team set up that we got the top 10% of properties in just 30 days. So it's pretty crazy. I can just look it up and it's the first property. So that's how you know, like, I'm really doing this and I can show you how to do it correctly because literally the proof is in the pudding. We're #1 property right here. And now that I've covered that, you understand why landlords would let me rent out their property and turn it into an Airbnb over a traditional tenant, and how this isn't saturated as long as you're going to do it correctly. It is only saturated for amateurs and people that don't know how to outperform the rest of the market. When it comes to starting this business, the first thing you need to have is obviously money to do that. So you want to learn how to get capital. Now, in the beginning, you probably heard me talk about how I started and scaled this business without any cash out of my own pocket. And that's because I leveraged business funding. Now, a lot of people don't know that you can get access to 0% interest business credit cards. And all you have to do is set up an LLC, get a business checking account, and have a decent personal credit score, and you can get access to 0% interest business funding. Now, the only issue is that when you have a new LLC, no matter how good your credit score is, you're not going to get very much funding because you don't have, one, revenue going through the business, or if you do, you don't have a bunch. And secondly, you don't have a business relationship with any of the banks that offer 0% interest. So something that I offer to my clients in BNB Syndicate. BNB Syndicate is the program that I created to work with people one-on-one to start, grow, and scale their rental arbitrage business or Airbnb business without having to use a ton of their own cash and without having to risk buying any property. So right here is our 0% interest business dashboard. I can go over to it and show you it right here. Hit refresh, show you what the numbers look like. We funded over $1.2 million just this year. So something that I offer inside of my program is I acquire 0% interest business credit for my students, because like I told you, it is hard to get useful amounts of 0% interest business credit when you're first starting out. So what I do is I leverage my relationships with the banks. And obviously I have generated hundreds of thousands of dollars every single month for years. I can use my relationships with those banks to get someone that could only get maybe $10,000, $15,000 of 0% interest from the bank to up to $200,000 in 0% interest business credit. And you can imagine having 10, 12 times the amount that you would originally gotten is extremely useful, especially when you have a plan and blueprint to utilize it. And I can go through here and show you what people are getting at the moment. I have to blur out these names, but this guy right here, he has $176,000 in 0% interest business funding, and he still has 2 cars that are pending to get approved. So he'll likely have over $200,000 in 0% interest business funding. So that is freaking awesome. Now, going back to this, now we understand how to acquire capital. The next thing we want to go into is how are we doing this using AI to analyze a market and analyze properties for us. So this first tool right here is called AirDNA. Now, AirDNA is a tool that has all the data for all short-term rentals. Short-term rentals are properties that are listed on platforms like Airbnb, VRBO that, are rented on a nightly basis. Those are short-term rentals. Now it collects all data from all the markets and is extremely accurate for tracking any data point that you can imagine for a market, for a property, for a neighborhood, whatever data point that you're looking for. And you can look up any city and whatever it is that you're looking for to show you exactly what numbers that city is performing at. For analysis, I'm going to look up whatever city that it is, and I'll go into this in just a second and show you exactly how to do it. And it'll give you all those data points. Now that you've found what properties, you can go over here to STR listings tab and you can see what the best performing properties are doing. All you have to do is see what those properties look like. If they're a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a pool in the middle of town, now all you have to go over to Zillow, look up the city and filter for 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses with a pool. And now you find properties for rent that are similar to the properties on here. And you pitch the landlord on corporate housing. I'm going to go into that and then I'll go into the next steps and exactly how to do this. So I'm going to go over to AirDNA. Now right here is AirDNA and what I'm looking at is Sarasota. You can look up any city and it will show you these data points. I'm not so interested in the market as a whole because like I said, 80% of the market is getting eaten up by the top 20% of the market. So it doesn't make sense to compare myself to the bottom 80% of the market because these data points are comparing the whole market. I want to compare myself to the top 20% of properties. So it only makes sense to look at the top 20% of properties and replicate what they're doing so I myself can be in the top 20% as well. So what I want to do is go over here to STR listings. When you do this, you'll notice like a bunch of mansions and stuff come up. Now, if I was just starting, I would not recommend starting with this. I would recommend starting with like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So what you can do is you can go up here and you can change the bedroom bathroom count to 3-bedroom. You can put 2-bathroom right here and change this to entire place because I don't like apartments at all. It usually takes 4 or 5 apartments to generate the income that one house does. So it doesn't make sense to do all that extra work that you could just do on one house. Now, the next thing you want to go over to performance and you want to filter this for days available. You want to see the properties that are available for, if not all the year, most of the year, because it doesn't make sense to compare yourself to properties that are only available for a couple days throughout the year. Now, I can see the best performing 3-bedroom, 2-bath properties. Now we can see that all these properties are, for the most part, like, single story homes with a decent backyard, a nice pool in the center of town. Like there's nothing crazy or insane about them. And now you can see this one's doing insane numbers. But you can see most of these are averaging in the 500s, like low to mid $500 a night at an 80 to 90% occupancy rate. So with that data, I'm going to head over to Zillow. I found a property already because I don't want to bore y'all with this. But all I did was looked up the city and I put for rent. And for bedroom bathroom count, I put 3-bedroom, 2-bath, put it for houses only. And then on the more tab, I selected with a pool because the top properties are performing with a pool. And I found this property right here, which is very, very similar, updated property with a nice backyard and a pool, single story home. Now, all I got to do is go over to my calculator right here. And I'm going to enter my security deposit and my first month's rent right here. And what I'm going to spend on furniture. You can spend a lot more than this, but I always estimate high because I like to put the highest quality of furniture in my property because you could probably spend $10,000-$15,000 to furnish this property, but that furniture has a high likelihood of breaking and you have to rebuy that furniture anyway. So might as well buy nice furniture in the first place. Now, keep in mind, you're using 0% interest business funding to pay for this. So it's not having to come out of your pocket anyway. And then the property will generate the income to not only pay itself off, but generate profit as well. What I'm seeing over here, like I said, these properties were like mid to low 500. So I'm going to put 500 right here. And these properties were operating at 80 to 90% occupancy. So again, I'm going to run it conservative. I'm going to put 85%. So in this case, this property would generate $12,750 a month in revenue and $153,000 a year in revenue. Keep in mind that is before expenses. After expenses, this is cash flow. This is what you profit, your net profit every single month is going to be $7,920, and your annual profit $95,000 every single year in profit, bringing you a 24% cash on cash return or ROI, meaning you would make your money back in about 2 months, which is totally insane. If you know anything about investments, 24% on a predictable investment is insane. Now you might be able to say stocks, crypto, yeah, but that isn't completely unpredictable. You're not going to be able to look at a bunch of other comparable numbers and then just do it yourself. Like a lot of that is luck and hoping that you have the right timing. Rental arbitrage doesn't matter when you're starting, what time of the season, no matter what. Like you can run these numbers, look at how other properties are doing, and then replicate that exactly what they're doing and make the same numbers that they're doing. We understand how to get the capital. We understand how to use AI to analyze the market and find a similar property for rent. Now we want to go into the numbers before we talk to the landlord about using their property. Well, that calculator that I just showed you is my rental arbitrage calculator. Now, the average property, I would say, if you're renting an average property for about $4,000 a month, your average daily rate will probably be about $500 a night. And your occupancy rate will be about 80%, which is 24 days. And revenue with these numbers, 24 days times 500, your revenue would be $12,000 a month. Your average profit margin on a decent property or on a really good property is gonna be 60% profit margin, meaning you would profit over $7,000 a month per property. Now, scale to 10 properties, now you make $70,000 a month. And I do currently have students and clients that are generating over $70,000 a month at this current point in time. You know how to acquire the capital to get the property. You analyze it, you make sure this property is going to crush it. You run the numbers to make sure that it's worth your time and worth your investment. Now we need to set up this property. How are we going to do that? Now, first of all, you need to acquire the property. With that, what I use and what my clients use is my rental arbitrage pitch script. Right here is what we use to reach out to landlords, whether it's over the phone, text, email, to get them to say yes to letting us use their property, along with the things that I mentioned earlier, the 5 reasons why a landlord would prefer us over a regular tenant. The next thing that we're going to go over once we get a yes from them is have them sign our sublease addendum. This sublease addendum right here is what legally allows you to Airbnb someone else's home or rent someone else's home and sublease it on a short-term basis. Now we'll have them sign that, and that'll legally protect us and allow us to do that. From there, I have my own interior designer, but if you're just starting out, I would recommend using something like Thumbtack, and you can look up interior designers in your area, put in your zip code, and you can see what their previous work looks like, what their experience looks like, and you may even be able to find interior designers that can not only do the interior design, I didn't even spell this right, they can do the interior design, but can also set up the properties for you remotely. And you can vet their work and everything on Thumbtack to see exactly what their work looks like. Going back over here, I would have my interior designer, I would send them the floor plan of the property, and they would lay out how every single room is going to look and what is going to be in those rooms. Then from there, obviously they would fly out and come set up the property for me. Because again, I'll be doing this completely remotely. Now this property right here is the one that popped up, just happened to pop up when I looked up Airbnb. And this property right here is Cowgirl Cottage. We set it up, I think like a month or so ago. And we got the top 10% of properties in just the first 30 days of launching it. You might be wondering like why every time I show one of my Airbnbs is not ever like me hosting it. And that's because I want this to be as passive as possible for me. So what I have is called co-host. Now, co-hosts are people that manage properties for other people. They manage Airbnbs and they take a percentage. Now, not only do I show people how to start and build a rental arbitrage business, but I also show people how to co-host properties as well. So they can manage Airbnbs for other people and take, a 20, 30% profit off of the property's revenue, whatever it generates. We understand how to get the capital, how to analyze it using AI and making sure that we're going to get the right property with our math. Then we understand how to set up the property, how to make it look great. Now, if you want to set up the property yourself, I would definitely recommend looking at the competitors, the top performing properties, and how they did their interior design, and possibly live on Pinterest for a little while so you can understand the basics of interior design. We got our property set up. What do we need to do? Now we need to set up our automations for the property so that we're not taking a ton of time out of our own life to manage this business, because otherwise you're just giving yourself another job, and we don't want that. So the first thing we want to do is set up a Price Labs account. Now, Price Labs is an awesome non-negotiable software. This is what is going to allow your property, this is what is going to automate the pricing on all of your listings, and it's going to make sure that you're making the most amount of money while having the highest occupancy. Now, I don't recommend using the Airbnb pricing software that they have because it only factors in occupancy. So it wants you to get 100% occupancy. It doesn't care if you're charging $10 a night. It just wants you to get as high as occupancy as possible because that benefits them and that makes them, Airbnb, the platform, look better. Price Labs is dynamic pricing software that analyzes all the market data in the area, and it's going to be able to increase your pricing constantly throughout the day, which is boosting the algorithm on Airbnb, which will keep your property on the first page of Airbnb, therefore making you more money, having higher occupancy. This is a non-negotiable software. This is like, if you're going to have any software, make sure it is this. Now, the next thing that we need to have is Turno. Now, Turno is a platform you can use to find your cleaners. These are cleaners that are already vetted and have already cleaned Airbnbs. And also on here, you can see the reviews from other Airbnb hosts, and you can see the reviews from other guests that have stayed in Airbnbs that they have cleaned. So you can make sure that you're getting the best cleaners that you have. Also on here, you can automate your calendars and connect Turno to your Airbnb calendar so the cleaners know when your guests are checking out and when they're checking in, so they know what time frame they have to come clean the property. And you can also automate paying on here as well. If you don't know, every single guest pays the cleaning fee on a property. That doesn't come out of your pocket. That cleaning fee goes straight to the cleaners, and you can have that automated on here to when the cleaners are done cleaning, it pays them as well. So it's not something that you're having to worry about either. Completely automated. I'm going for as much automation as possible, so it takes as little work from me to run this business. The next thing, which is the biggest and most important software, which is your PMS software, which is your property management software. The best one, in my opinion, is going to be Guesty. Now, Guesty allows you to connect your calendars from all your platforms, whether it's Airbnb, VRBO, bookings.com, so you're not getting double bookings or having overlapping bookings. It allows you to control your revenue. This is that dashboard that I showed you in the beginning, where I showed you how much I generated in the last 30 days, last 90 days, last year. This is what I use to track all that data, and you can use it to track all your listings, track your revenue, track your calendars. And the best part is you can automate your communications with your guests, and you can automate check-in and check-out using Wi-Fi deadbolts like this. This is Yale Assure Lock or your Slage On code. These are Wi-Fi deadbolts that connect to the Wi-Fi, and you can connect them to Guesty, and Guesty will change the codes to the house every time a guest checks in and checks out. So every guest has their own code, and I set mine to the last 4 digits of their phone number so they don't forget it either. That is exactly how everything's built out and automated. And the last thing you want to make sure you have, it's called a minute or menu. I don't know how you say it. It's minute, but without the E. And this is a noise monitor. The best thing about this is I like to stick it to the ceiling so no one can remove it, but you can set a decibel limit. So if your guests are being too loud and they cross that decibel barrier, you can have it send them messages letting them know they're being too loud. That is exactly how everything is built out, and I'll show you a little bit of how my team is built out. Obviously, you have me at the top right here, and then you have my operations manager, and he manages the VAs, which are essentially co-hosts that manage the cleaners, the backup cleaners, and the handyman for every single city that my properties are in. Currently, I'm operating in 2 cities, so I only have 2 teams, but you also want to always have cleaners, and if anything happens with those cleaners or they're not available, you want to make sure you have backup cleaners and handyman as well anytime something small is broken. When there's anything small, anything less than $250, I'll cover it as a business. Anything over that, as long as it's not the guest's fault, it'll be the landlord's job to fix that, whether it's like plumbing, AC, stuff like that. They'll handle that stuff. And then the operations manager will also manage the phone manager, who manages the phone VAs, which if you don't know what VAs are, those are virtual assistants. And what they do is they call landlords all day, making sure that the landlords say yes so we can secure more properties. Going over here is the lead ID, which is lead interior designer. My lead interior designer, she manages 8 other interior designers, so 9, including herself. They're going to do everything as far as doing the layout of the properties. They're going to do an e-design. They're going to manage the floor plan. And then, of course, they're going to fly out and set up the properties and launch the properties. Now, I know if you're getting into this, you're just starting, so you won't have this kind of team. You don't have to spend like a bunch of money to do this. If you're wanting to get your first property, I would definitely use Thumbtack to get your first interior designer. If that interior designer doesn't have a team that can set up properties, there's a ton of platforms that you can use to hire contractors to come build furniture for you and set them up for you. But in a lot of cases, good interior designers will have a team that can come set up the property for you in the local area. So wherever that property is, make sure they use Thumbtack. You can search whatever your zip code is and look up interior designers, and it'll tell you what those interior designers have, what they offer, their previous work, and you can even ask them if they will set up properties for you remotely, which in a lot of cases they will. That's exactly how all of that is done. That's the inside and out of my business. That's all the guts. If this is something that you want to get into, if this is something that you're interested in, again, I'm not selling anything. I'm not like saying you should buy anything, but down below in the description, you can book a call with me and my team if it's something that you're interested in getting into. And on that call, we can go over if this is even something that you can do at all. On that call, we're going to go over like if you would work with us, if we would work with you, because of course it's got to be a mutual decision. If we don't end up working together on that call, you'll come off that call learning a ton and knowing exactly what to start and what to do to get your business rolling. So it's really a win-win situation for you. So if you appreciated this video, let me know what you thought down in the comments. Drop a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And I appreciate y'all spending this time with me.